Hey, I'm Nick DeMatteo, and welcome to video episode number 72 and audio premiere of season 4 of Music is Not a Genre. Each week we talk about music, and that's all I'm saying. A lot of changes this season. You'll find out with this episode. This is an introductory episode. I think you're going to like it. And thank you for joining me again. Thank you for watching and listening and clicking and sharing and subscribing. And if you're a Patreon patron, awesome. If not, please go check that out, patreon.com/musicisnotagenre. You can also support this podcast now independently on Anchor, where I publish it, anchor.fm/musicisnotagenre. So let's get right to it. This is the premiere of season 4. This is the longest I've ever taken off of doing podcast. A lot of great things happened in this past year, despite it being a tumultuous year. And I thought that a break was needed and deserved, and also would give me time to kind of reflect and make some changes. If you notice, I changed some of the graphics on this, which I'm always tweaking and I always love doing. Put more kind of focus on the music itself and just colors and stuff that I like. And I'm going to be talking about some of the other changes here that also include you. So please keep listening because you will be, I think, pleasantly surprised at how involved you get to be in this, I hope. And if you are watching, I may even get to why I have these things on my table. For those of you just listening in audio, I have some very odd objects here, and I may mention them later on. But let's get right to the topic this week first, which is some things happen. The flood, the new season, and what you want. So let's get philosophicalizing, which is that change is inevitable. It doesn't matter whether we want it or not. It happens. In fact, any period in life where we feel like things aren't changing is kind of an illusion, you know. And I think that what I've learned in all these years is that it's better, well, two things really. It's better to embrace change and choose it yourself and get comfortable with it. So actively being aware of what's going on and making the changes that you think will make for a better future for you and your loved ones and your work. And secondly, that sometimes change happens whether you want it to or not. And we're going over both of these things today. But as I said, this is kind of an introductory episode, not just for season 4, but for anyone who hasn't been a part of this podcast family before and doesn't maybe know what it's about or where it came from. So let me give you a little bit of background, because even you who have been listening for a while may not know where this came from. I started a blog back in January 2016 that was text and photos only, and it came about because I was sitting at the foot of my bed staring at the shelves of cassettes that I had put up. The first time I had put up shelves of my cassettes in decades, because I had the room, and said, you know, this is, I think I can do something with this. I had just released, under my band name Rec, an album called The Sunshine Seminar, one of my favorites, and thought, well, how can I promote this other than in the usual ways? And I thought, well, people love retro, they love music of all kinds, and they love to talk about the things they know. So why not go through my cassette collection one by one, since these are things that were important to me when I bought them, and talk about each album or artist and connect it to a song from my album or a different album or something like that. And so that's how it started. And for, over 3.5 years, I went from cassette to cassette to cassette. I got through all of my cassettes. I went to my vinyl collection, started with the 45s, and then I went to the 78s and the 33 and the thirds, 12 inches and all that stuff. And about midway through my vinyl collection in late 2019, I had a talk with a very important person, someone I'm actually marrying later this year, and came to the conclusion that video was where I should go. And it was partly because I've been an actor. I've certainly been on video in other ways, music videos and other things like that. And I love talking, and I love talking about music. And I had already started putting up more video content of just song performances on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Nick DeMatteo, if you're not already there. And I hadn't done much else with it. So we kind of cleaned it up and gave it a new name called Music is Not a Genre. And that came from the music project that I had been working on since 2016 that has resulted in my band Rec's recent release of 5 albums called The Weird Objective. It's where that came from, and more to come. And so I thought, well, let me take this thing, this blog that I had called the Thursday Throwback Track, or 4T, and turn it into a video. And so that's what I did. I just started doing the same thing that I was doing in text and photos, but I was doing it on video. And I did that till about mid-2020. It dawned on me that what I was doing was different now, that it wasn't just about picking a release, talking about it, connecting it to my music, that I was seeing connections everywhere else. I was seeing connections to all other kinds of music, to other people, to things in the real world that had nothing to do with music. So I did a few things. First of all, I started kind of an auxiliary podcast that's still part of this one called Music is Everything. And there are episodes of those throughout my audio in particular, but video as well, where I took a topic, a music topic, and I discussed it at length and connected it to things in the real world, which was very exciting to me because it could be about anything, politics and society and all of that. And I also realized I wanted to bring more people into this. So, later on, I added some interviews to this, and that's where the interview series started. And that will be continuing in a couple of weeks. Actually, I'll be kicking off another round of interviews. And during that time, I realized, well, it needed a new name. It wasn't the Thursday Throwback Track. That was too tied to the past and to other, sources of social media and stuff like that. So what name was it going to be? Well, the name was already on the YouTube channel. Why think of a different name? It became Music is Not a Genre. And that's where we are today. I broke it into seasons. I eventually transitioned to the audio, which you may be listening to right now, and I was very excited to do all of that. I started a Patreon page, patreon.com/musicisnotagenre, where I have exclusive videos, performance videos, and video playlists, and the interviews in particular. I think the biggest draw there is that I'm talking to other real music people live, on camera or audio if that's where you're listening, and bringing them into the mix of just this music conversation. And you can only see those on patreon.com/musicisnotagenre. So lots and lots of changes. And I've been very excited about those changes. And there are some changes coming up for this season, some of which include you, but I thought I'd talk about one other change that happened, which is I am a one-take person. You don't see editing cuts in this video. You don't really hear editing cuts in the audio because I like to prepare to the hilt and then just run it and do it. It doesn't mean I won't do another take if it's necessary. I do a lot of false starts, and then when I get the rhythm, that's the take. But what happened here was, this is not the original premiere episode of Season 4. I did one last week, last Wednesday or Tuesday, I believe. And it was fine. It's similar to this, different vibe maybe. And I was going to run it. I was going to, edit it and launch it and the whole thing. And then Wednesday night, September 1st, our area here in New York City in Queens was hit by the remnants of Hurricane Ida. And because my studio is in the basement space of our place, it was completely flooded, almost a foot of water. We scrambled for a couple of hours, saving what we could, electronics, books, keepsakes, a lot of stuff got damaged. Things had to be thrown out. We're still recovering. We're still cleaning. We're still assessing damage from certain things. But it made me realize yet again that some change comes whether you want it to or not. And so we've taken the opportunity to make some improvements to the space, in the scant, amount of time that we've had since then. And I've taken the opportunity to re-record this episode because it was a little too monumental for me to just post the other episode, especially since it's put off my launch for a week. And I like to keep to a schedule for my own sake, but for your sake too. The consistency and reliability, predictability. I think it's important. And but I couldn't run it. It just wasn't right anymore because things had happened. Some things happen, which I will repeat again later on. And so here we are, and here I am recording this second take, this very unusual second take of the premiere episode of season 4. And one of the things that were damaged was a good portion of my CD collection. And if you're following along, as you know, right now I am on my CD collection. And in fact, the band that I will be talking about next week, which unless something changes is going to be Red Hot Chili Peppers, they happen to be on the bottom shelf of one of my CD, towers, and their CDs were just waterlogged. I don't think they're destroyed, but I haven't tested them out yet. They still exist. I'm looking at them over there that way. And hopefully they'll be in good enough shape for me to put them on camera. I'll certainly still talk about the band. I'm listening through their entire catalog now, and I'm loving it. But it just made me realize how something that has been a part of my life, depending on the album, for 10, 20, 30 years, could just easily go just like that in a snap. It's not a fun thing to contemplate, and it's a less fun thing to have to go through. But it reinforces this idea I have here about change, and that is, other than things like that, I would like to actively choose the change that happens in life. So one of the, other than the changes I talked about with graphics and et cetera, some of the changes that I am adding to this season that I'm very excited about is I will be reviewing or discussing. I don't like that word because it implies that I'm judging. Discussing music books, discussing music movies, music television shows, like maybe that unfortunately canceled reboot of High Fidelity, which I thought was awesome, or something like that. And certainly more interviews and all of the other kinds of things that I have already been doing. One of those big changes here, and here it is, it comes from you, which is I'd like to shape future episodes based on what you want to talk about. I will still be pulling things from my collection. I will still be, doing the interviews and adding things that I decide will be awesome to talk about. Hopefully I'll still get into some music topics with the Music is Everything auxiliary podcast and all of that. But I know you have ideas. I know you have interests and loves and passions and things you dislike even. And I'd like to talk about those. And maybe we can't have a two-way conversation. That'd be kind of crazy with everybody out there. But I can incorporate some of the things that you want to hear about and talk about into future podcasts. What artists have I not talked about that you'd love to hear about? Or if I have, do you want to hear about again, but in a different light? Things like that. I would love to highlight albums or songs, even a single song that you think deserves to be talked about at length. Let me know about that, because there are things that, one of the challenges I love, I'm in a cover band, several bands, and when we are asked to do a song that I don't really like or that I don't click with, the challenge there is, how do I have fun with it? How do I get to know it and enjoy it and make the audience enjoy it too? And I would love to do that with something you pick. Maybe there's something that I don't have that much interest in musically that you're like, oh, I'm so passionate about this, like the Eagles. I've never been a huge fan of the Eagles, but maybe you are. I would talk about them. I would love to get to know more about them just so that I can talk about them with you. And the thing is, they don't have to be a part of my collection. That's what, that's why I'm bringing you into this. I want to know things beyond what's a part of my world, since things seem to be flooding into my world that I didn't expect, so why not bring them in directly? Are there music ideas you always wished people would get more into? Is there something about trends you hear, or things you hear in music that you wondered if anybody else ever heard them? Bring it up, and I guarantee you I've thought of it at a certain point, and if I haven't, even better, because then I'll get to know something new too. Who else should I interview? I can't necessarily call up Dave Grohl and say, hey, or Paul McCartney or anybody, but I'll give it a shot. Or if you know somebody, if you know even better, an independent artist you think deserves to be spotlighted, whether it's somebody who is a DJ or a musician, a singer-songwriter, whatever, something related to music, please let me know, because I want to showcase people like that. It's what I've been doing. It's what I continue to do. I've certainly done it for myself for years, and I'd like to do that for others too. And I don't know everybody. I don't know a fraction of anybody. So that's where you come in. And of course, is there a book, is there a movie, a TV show related to music that I should discuss? What should I change about the podcast? Is there something about this podcast that you're saying, oh, he almost went there and he didn't go there, I wish he went there, or he keeps doing this and this is not a thing for me? I can't guarantee I'll make that change, but if enough people say we'd like to hear this or see this or not hear this or not see this, I will absolutely consider it, because that's why I'm doing this. One thing I can't change at the moment is the construction that's happening outside my window. I don't know if you can hear it, but if you can, it's a lot of drilling today, and I'm smiling facetiously. And so that means that future episodes will be shaped by you, which I just think is wonderful, because when I watch a show or listen to a podcast or any of those things, an interview, there are always times when I want to chime in there and say, oh, you could talk about this, or oh, I had that idea. I wish that I could be a part of this conversation. I want you to not just feel that, but to be that, to really be a part of this. And just in case you don't know where to go with this, I've given you a lot of information, you might be drawing a blank, or you might have 1,000 things you want to tell me. To help direct you, here are some prompts. What's in your collection? Everyone's collection is a reflection of their own personality and their own life and the people they've encountered in that life. And I'd like to know what's in that collection, because I guarantee you we have some crossovers, and I guarantee you it'll be very different from mine. And that's interesting to me. What does it mean to be a true fan? Is a true fan always loyal to everything an artist does? I'm speaking musically now. Or can they acknowledge that artist might go in a direction that didn't work, or go in a direction that did work but they're not as interested in, or whatever it might be? Things that you can be honest about and still love the artist the way you might with a relative or a friend, where you can acknowledge that person is not perfect. It's not perfect, but you still love them and still want them to be a part of your life. For a perfect example, one of my favorite bands is Chicago. And a lot of diehard Chicago fans, a lot of people who know, let's start with this, a lot of people who know Chicago, the name, just think of them as the 80s, power ballad hit makers. Diehard Chicago fans, many of them shun that period. Both of those groups often look down on the period in between the progressive, jazz, fusion, blues, rock, pop, classical, folk amalgam that they were for the first 10 years of their existence or so, and shun the period that came right after that, before they started making hits. Many fans wonder what happened to them after the early 90s. And I can be honest, as a very true fan and loyal fan of Chicago, and saying I do too. They have a tremendous amount of talent there. I've heard some of Robert Lamb's solo work, and he's still a very good songwriter. Chicago's albums after, let's just say for argument's sake, Chicago 21 was a good album. After that, what the hell, right? They did on their this collection that they did, this massive, like several CD collection, they did a couple new songs with Lenny Kravitz that I thought were awesome, and I kind of wished they had taken a cue from that and gone in that direction. They didn't. They did big band stuff. They do Christmas stuff all the time. As a true fan, I will be honest and say that's not my favorite stuff. You know, it's perfect. So I digress. And there will be a future Chicago episode because I have several dozen of their CDs. Do you favor well-known artists over indie artists? We all fall prey to the fact that the artists that have more money and press behind them are better known. But can you acknowledge that they're also better liked very often? We tend towards things that are successful. Is there an indie artist you like that you wish was more famous? Are there no indie artists that you know? Do you do not even really know what I mean by indie artists? Because that's a pretty fluid definition. I want to know, because my tastes are diverse enough that there are artists I know that are even friends that I wish other people would know, like this guy who calls himself Albatross Heights right now, Daniel Cousins. Great guy, you should get to know his music. Perfect example. Are you truly open-minded, which means do you actively want your opinions to be changed or modified or flipped? Or are you someone who says, yeah, I'm open-minded, I love all things, and then somebody comes in and says something about an artist you know or somebody you don't know that they really like, and you are in complete disagreement and you harden up and you close your mind? Or are you willing to say, oh, really? Wow, I didn't know that, like the example of Chicago or something like that. It's hard to remain open-minded because we all have our things that are so close to the heart and then we're so passionate about, I think I hit the mic, sorry, that we don't want to break from that. But I find that when you open up, even if it changes things, it makes it more vibrant and you love what you love even more. Do you believe music can change the world, or is it just the soundtrack to change? I wonder this all the time. I think there are artists who believe music can change the world and has changed the world. And I think there are artists and fans, people who believe that it is just the soundtrack to change. That, you know, protest songs and things like that didn't create the protest, they accompanied it. I don't know if I know my opinion on this directly, but I'd love to do a podcast on it and talk about it. Do you know someone you think I should interview? I asked that before. I'm going to ask it again because I have several people lined up for this season of interviews, but I don't have everyone yet. So there are some gaps to fill, and you could fill them. Have you listened to any of my music as Nick DeMatteo, or my band Rex Music? And if so, what do you think of it? I'm constantly talking about it and adding it into every episode. And I know some of you have listened to it, and that's wonderful, and thank you. But I'd like to know what you think of it. I'd like to know if you've shared it. I'd like to know if you feel like Rec is a band that you would recommend to others. Recommend to others. Recommend to others. And to start that off, I am going to suggest, as I do every episode, a song of mine, of my band Rex, that I think perfectly fits this episode. Happen to use the title of the song in the title of the episode. It's a song called Some Things Happen off of Rex album Parts and Labor. And it's one of my personal favorite Rex songs. I would love for you to click this link and listen to it and tell me what you think. A lot of what's in there is based on true events in my life that had happened before that period. And the sentiment directly ties into getting this freaking, basement and studio completely flooded. And so I think it's kind of the perfect thing. I am so excited about this season. I'm excited for, to be talking to you again and to having you watch and listen and all of that. I hope that you have subscribed to youtube.com/Nick DeMatteo. I hope that you become a Patreon member if you're not already of patreon.com/musicisnotagenre. I hope that you support me. Real easy way to do it on anchor.fm/musicisnotagenre. And more than anything, I hope that you keep listening and watching, and that you comment, that you answer some of these questions and send me in the things that you want to talk about, or your response to this episode even, because as always, my objectives here are music, conversation, and connection. And before you think I forgot, What's on my table? Almost had you there. All the way to the, I guess it's your right. No, it's your left. I don't know. Is a mug that says 100%. It's from a company I co-founded with my partner called Snirk Shirts by Feek. And Feek is this character right here who is shouting 100%. We have mugs, we have t-shirts. We're going to have some other merch soon too. There's a globe in that mug and some scissors because life is random. I'm sure you could make a metaphor about the scissors behind the globe. Go for it. There's a plant here which I have a black thumb, not a green thumb, so I don't take care of that plant. There are sunglasses that are missing one pane that are from the 1980s. Vintage, checkered sunglasses. There is this little hip-hop dude that's a keychain. I can't remember where I got it, but I've always liked the hat. And there is a friend of mine's friend, as a birthday gift, got me this figure of John Lennon from Yellow Submarine. At some point in its life, it dropped off my desk and broke, and John Lennon's head came off. Don't be talking to me about the, apt metaphor, but it's true. I also happen to have a collection of Smurf heads from when I was a kid because I hated Smurfs so much that I cut their heads off. I often microwaved them. I don't hate them anymore. I find them kind of cool and fun. But what I did was I swapped out the heads. So I put the Smurf head on top of John Lennon's body, and John Lennon's arms are carrying his own head. So there you go, audio people. There's my description. Hopefully you video people hung in there because that was fun. And again, thank you for being here, for listening. Stay tuned next week for Red Hot Chili Peppers, unless I change my mind. And welcome to Season 4. And we'll talk more soon.